Okay, yeah. Clowns can be creepy. So, classic Doctor Who review and voted on by my supporters over on Patreon. If you want to have a say in what classic Doctor Who story I will take a look at next, any support level, you do get to vote. Yeah, I'm pushing the plugs a little bit more. It's what's paying my bills now. Barely, but anyways. So, this time, my Patreon supporters decided to select the greatest show in the galaxy. And out of the options I gave them for a Seventh Doctor story, I was kind of surprised this one won. But I'm also glad it did. This is one that I have not seen before because I mentioned this back when I was doing these as podcasts, but there were a handful of classic Who stories that I saw early into my trying to get into classic Who that I wasn't in the right mind frame to appreciate. So I have been revisiting those as well. But this one was completely fresh to me. And it's pretty good. There's some little hiccups here and there, but overall, this is actually, first of all, surprisingly ambitious, especially for Doctor Who at that time, which kept having his budget slashed over and over and over and over again. So it's pretty impressive, all things considered, from the costumes to the sets to the concepts to the explosion. Yeah, there's a legit explosion in this thing. I'm pretty impressed with this. So if you don't know this one, it's what it sounds like. There's a circus that bills itself as the Psychic Circus, the greatest show in the galaxy, and that lures in the Seventh Doctor and Ace, which, first of all, Seventh Doctor and Ace will always make me happy and smile. They are amazing together. They are one of the great pairings. Individually, neither is my favorite, neither companion nor doctor, but put them together and they are one of the best doctor-companion pairings. Now, right off the bat, we know something's up with this circus. Aside from the fact that it's a Doctor Who story, yes, something's going to be off and weird and that the doctors going to have to fix. But right off the bat, we've got some circus performers who are trying to flee being pursued by kites, as well as a clown, the chief clown, who is wonderfully creepy. Like he's often in the background, but like he'll get this grin on his face. He's like, oh dang. And like I'm not someone who's inherently creeped out by clowns. Like I'm not. I actually did not care, especially for It. I know nobody cared for It Chapter 2, but I didn't really care for Chapter 1 because I felt like it lent too heavily on the idea that you already had a fear of clowns and it didn't do much to earn its scares. This earns the creep factor of that clown, so props to that. But we know people are trying to escape this circus. We initially, of course, don't know why. And there's also some other weird stuff because the locals on the planet where the circus, which was once a traveling circus but isn't anymore, none of the locals ever go there. And one of the few locals that the Doctor and Ace encounter is like, you weirdos, you always go to the circus. Everybody does eventually. And again, it's just more things like, this is weird and odd. And it is weird. Like, there are parts of it that are borderline psychedelic in terms of imagery. It's a little bit, I was going to say it's a little bit more abstract, but now that I think about it, it's not necessarily. Here's what I'll say. There's something that's normally I consider to be a fault in the McCoy era, but actually functions pretty well here, which is that the pace at which things move and get revealed and how weird they are is sometimes a little bit difficult to follow. Now, it's on my list to go back and revisit and see if I can make better heads or tails of it, but something like, say, Ghostlight, it really felt like they were rushing these concepts and these ideas and these events to the point that it's almost impenetrable to figure out what the heck actually went on in that and truly parse it out. And so I've run into that in McCoy's era before, and that is a little bit what's going on here, but the difference is, because the overall atmosphere is a bit more mysterious and a bit more just off-kilter, it actually works. Those sorts of jumps and sped through sections, they actually function because they match the tone and the mood of the thing. So it doesn't fit. And Curse of Fenric, that was another one that felt like it had some sections of it that were badly rushed. Whereas here, when you find yourself feeling like you turned over 2 pages at once, that disorientation actually matches the overall vibe of the story here, which isn't the case in Curse of Fenric or Ghost Light or and possibly other ones that I haven't seen yet and will and may encounter this sort of thing again. But here it works and it contributes because of the overall feel of the thing. There are a couple of odd things. So like the Ringmaster raps and like that really, really, really basic, TV show and celebrities trying to rap in the 80s kind of thing. I'm not gonna do it, but it's painful. And it's also, unfortunately, the way the story opens. The very first thing you see is this guy rapping. Oof. But that's like about the only thing that I would call a flat out fault. Pretty much the rest of the performances are solid. There's a couple of interesting side characters. I mentioned the Chief Clown. He's just great and creepy. There is also another pairing, which is almost sort of a twisted mirror of the Doctor and Ace, which is Captain Cook and Mags. Now, Captain Cook is this explorer, very pompous, well-to-do, full of himself, a million stories, but like just is kind of sitting on his butt, yet still thinks he's, it's a big deal. And his companion Mags, who doesn't talk very much, and he kind of orders around a bit. And the more we learn about both of them, the more it's like, oh, okay. And like I said, it doesn't feel like it's a doctor companion relationship, but it feels like it's the most toxic version of what that might look like. And again, that sort of feeling like a fun house mirror reflection of the Doctor and Ace does feel appropriate for the overall vibe of this thing. Some of the stuff that goes on with Mags in terms of when we find out more about her on the tail end, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little weird not in a, ooh, that's weird and strange, more in a, really? kind of way, but whatever, roll with it. Visually realized is quite neat, but the core concept is a little bit like, I'm sorry, what? Or at least it was to me. There's some stuff that I'm going to have to say, okay, I am going to have to talk spoilers to get into some of the stuff on the tail end of this thing. So, overall, I do recommend it. It is one of the better Seventh Doctor stories that I've seen thus far. It's got a good vibe. It's well executed. Some good performances. Yeah, check it out. It's good stuff. So a couple of spoiler points before I wrap up. So, the fact that Mags is a werewolf, like, changed by the moon, weakness to silver bullets, the works. So not an alien reminiscent of a werewolf, but just a straight up werewolf. That's kind of where I'm like, I'm sorry, what? But then again, the visual realization of that and the makeup or whatever actually done pretty well. And like not just standard werewolf makeup. So that, I'm good with that. I haven't mentioned the character of the Whiz Kid. There's this character that is designed very intentionally to be, frankly, a bit of a mockery of the fandom. And kind of poking fun at some of the more obsessive fans. Because this kid, and he is a kid, he's like a teenager. He shows up and he's like, oh, I know all about all the history of the psychic circus. Oh, this gig over on this planet, that was one of your best ones. Even though, in my lifetime, it hasn't been as good as it used to be. But, it's pretty pointed that they're kind of making fun of know-it-all, wise-ass, continuity-obsessed Doctor Who fans. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. It felt like a gentle ribbing. Certainly better handled than Love and Monsters. Up until they killed the character. That's where it felt a little cruel. Like, the character in and of himself was already a joke. It was already but that felt good-natured. That felt like, you know how you folks can be a little bit. It's all in good fun. Don't worry about it. Oh, he's dead. That's where it felt a little bit less like a joke and a little bit more like a threat is too harsh a word, but it was like, there's a bit more venom behind this critique that I think you were letting on with your initial tone on that. So, and maybe it's also just because of how young the character is. I'm not used to Doctor Who killing off characters in their teens like this. Not to say Doctor Who has never done it, but for it to happen at all and for it to happen so flippantly, I think that's the thing. It feels like the show is almost half expecting me to laugh and like, no, not funny. Up until the point that they killed him, I was fine with the critique and everything else. But then that happened, I was like, And then there's the whole thing. I love it. It's kind of a slow realization that this family of three that's been just sitting in the back watching the performances, they are not what they seem to be, and there's something else going on. And we get them. They are the gods of Ragnarok, which never gets an explanation. But again, that sort of vibe works with the thing. And the Doctor starts doing these magic tricks to entertain them. And I love that Sylvester McCoy, he actually had coaching from like sleight of hand and magicians to be able to do these things himself. He didn't know how to do any of this stuff before it started. And while it's not the best executed sleight of hand I've ever seen in my life, it's better than I could do, certainly. So props to him. And I mentioned an explosion at the front end. I caught this when I was looking into the episode a little bit more. That explosion that happens sort of out the entrance of the tent when he's walking away, that was bigger than it was supposed to be. And the back of his clothes actually caught on fire, but he didn't flinch because he knew they would not be able to reset to do another take. So he just kept walking till he was off camera, then they had to put him out. This was good. This is the kind of episode that I watch this and I really get, episodes like this in Remembrance of the Daleks, I really get the frustration from fans at the time that the show was put on hiatus. Because, look, if the show had been put on ice right at the end of Colin Baker, and we hadn't ever gotten Sylvester McCoy, or honestly, possibly even after McCoy's first season, I could have seen it. Like, yeah, maybe it needs a rest. But here, like, this is good. Not just like for the time. No, this is a good, solid Doctor Who story. And I can only imagine the frustration at fans watching the show start to get good again and then just go on hiatus for dang ass. I couldn't decide what I was saying. Long time. But that is Great Show in the Galaxy. You rewatched it lately? Have you ever seen it? Why are you still here past the spoiler point if you haven't? Whatever your thoughts are. Drop something on down in the comments and let us talk about it. You know all the stuff to do. I mentioned the Patreon already. I'll mention it again. Ha! And in addition to that, there is, of course, liking, sharing, subscribing, hitting the bell, all of which help me out in some way. So it's all greatly appreciated, but also no pressure for any of it. Because we like to take a relaxed attitude around here. So just come on back next time you need a break.